please.
Good evening, this is the news and sport from ITN. Tonight's headlines: despair for Italy and jubilation for Brazil as the World Cup is won on penalties. Rwanda, a million flee. United Nations calls it a humanitarian catastrophe. And golf, Zimbabwe's Nick Price lifts the trophy in the Open. Brazil are football's new world champions. They won the title for a record fourth time. But victory over Italy tonight came only after a penalty shootout at the end of a goalless final, the first ever to be decided on penalties. It was watched by 94,000 fans at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena and a worldwide television audience of 2 billion. The closest either side came to a goal during normal time was when the Italian goalkeeper Paliuca fumbled a long-range shot onto a post. Italy had their chances too. This shot from Roberto Baggio was tipped over the bar during extra time, but the game went to the shootout. Baggio had to score Italy's fifth penalty, but blasted the ball over the bar. For Brazil, it was ecstasy. Their last success in the competition was in 1970, and they also beat Italy. Moments later, the Brazilian captain Dunga held the World Cup trophy aloft.
Rio's beaches were empty. The carnival began before the game, the samba rhythm building to an unbearable tension on the Copacabana. The fortunes of Brazil's team etched on the faces of the crowd, the anxious, the old and the young. As the game wore on and Brazil failed to score, the anxiety deepened. Chances going astray. Shots that might have made goals, saved or squandered. Every attack, every corner seemed to promise that Brazil's dream of a record fourth title might just be a moment away. They have waited for this game, for this moment for a quarter of a century. At last, in the ultimate test, a chance to turn their passion for the game that unites rich and poor here into a famous victory. Into extra time, and from the cafes to the Amazon across this vast country, the nation held its breath and held it still as the unthinkable penalty shootout loomed. Though in the end, they tasted the ecstasy of victory, and the carnival will go on. Bill Neely, ITN, Rio de Janeiro.
They were optimistic as they waved their flags and hooted their horns, Italians in their many thousands packing stadiums around the country to watch it all on TV. They had believed this would be their night, their fourth World Cup. For now, the cardboard cutout would do. Deep down, they were sure still that they would be seeing the real thing on the streets of Rome in a couple of days' time, jumping up and down with anticipation even before the game began. But the pain of realizing that theirs might be the losing side was as real here as in Pasadena. Outside in the street cafes, they suffered in silence. They'll probably blame the Prime Minister, Berlusconi. Most of the national squad's players come from Milan, a team he owns. Well, they'd hoped and they'd prayed, but it wasn't enough. Only the souvenirs remain. There'd be no frolicking in the fountains of Rome tonight, no celebratory drives through the streets. One young fan probably spoke for the whole of Italy when he told me a few minutes ago, "Io sono affranto," which roughly translated means, "I'm gutted." Vernon Mann, ITN, Rome.
The parents of a Briton feared murdered by guerrillas in Cambodia are tonight clinging to the hope their son's alive. The Foreign Office has warned them there's strong evidence Dominic Chappell and another Briton, Tina Domini, are dead.
Dominic Chappell's family have been told to prepare for the worst. At home in South London, his mother waits for the phone to ring. Even so, she hasn't abandoned all hope.
Not totally. There is very strong evidence that things are very, very serious, but until it is all completely sorted out, one must have some sort of hope.
Dominic, his Australian girlfriend Kelly Wilkinson, and a British woman, Tina Domini, were abducted at gunpoint by Khmer Rouge guerrillas in April. Now, clothing and human remains have been found in the area where the abduction took place. Nevertheless, Dominic's father, who's in Phnom Penh, believes the discovery is inconclusive.
Certain items were found. What has been found, where and by whom, I don't know. It's just suggests that they may possibly be dead. But until tests have been carried out on whatever's been found, then we just don't know.
But initial forensic examinations strongly suggest that the remains found are those of the missing three, and it would appear that whatever slender hopes there may have been are now slowly ebbing away.
The woman charged with abducting baby Abby Humphries will appear before Nottingham Magistrates Court tomorrow. Police, who previously visited the house where Abby was eventually found, have refused to discuss why she wasn't rescued earlier.
A week ago, they were praying for Abby's safe return. Today, at Roger and Karen Humphreys Parish Church in Nottingham, the congregation gathered to offer special prayers of thanks. The 22-year-old woman who's been charged with abducting Abby will appear before magistrates tomorrow. But today, the questions were being directed at Nottinghamshire Police over their handling of the inquiry after they confirmed they visited the house where Abby was found several days before yesterday's raid.
Police visiting the address on the first occasion were given information about the birth of a baby, which was supported by a plausible explanation as to the circumstances surrounding the baby's birth.
The police statement goes even further. During that first visit to the house, an officer actually saw a baby, but didn't recognise her as Abby Humphreys. Karen and Roger have spent today away from the cameras, settling down to a new life with their baby daughter. Adrian Britton, ITN, Nottingham.
1 million refugees who fled the fighting in Rwanda in just 5 days are being forced to live in such appalling conditions the United Nations is calling it a humanitarian catastrophe. James Bays at ITN reports.
Tens of thousands of people have fled across the border from Rwanda into Zaire today as rebel forces advance on the last refuge of the Hutu government. Aid agencies estimate that more than 1 million people have left the country in the past 5 days. Among those escaping the horrors of Rwanda, defeated government troops. The refugees are being searched at the border crossing for weapons. Many have been found to be carrying machetes, hand grenades and rifles. Even when they get out of Rwanda, there's no escape from the civil war. Mortar bombs fired by the rebel forces have landed at an airport inside Zaire, halting all the relief flights that the people on the border so desperately need.
5 giant fragments of the Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 have now collided with the planet Jupiter. Each exploded into a massive fireball, each left behind an Earth-sized dent.
Sheer delight from American astronomers watching the first pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope. Last night, the first of 20 fragments of the comet hit the dark side of Jupiter, invisible from Earth. A few hours later, Jupiter's horizon looked normal. But then, over the horizon, signs of a huge fireball 1,000 miles high.
Absolutely knocked our socks off when we saw this.
Then, 10 hours and 1 Jupiter day later, a huge black scar as big as the Earth. Just a dot to the untutored eye, but to astronomers, gleeful confirmation of their predictions.
It's a champagne experience.
We're very, very privileged tonight to see an event that's not once in a lifetime, it's once in a millennium.
It looks like the pessimists were wrong. The impacts to come in the next few days will be spectacular and will unlock some secrets of this giant planet.
Golf and Nick Price of Zimbabwe lifted the Open Trophy at Turnberry this afternoon after a memorable last round. He won it on the last 2 holes.
A day of high tension at Turnberry came to a thrilling climax on the closing 2 holes. On the 17th green, the relatively unknown Swede, Jesper Pavnik, holed a simple putt for a 3-shot lead over Nick Price. The leaderboard told Price he needed an eagle at the 17th to stand any chance of the title. From the moment he struck the ball, the 75-foot pressure putt was never in doubt. Price celebrated. The pressure was back on Pavnik. He failed to check the leaderboard, and instead of safety, placed an ambitious iron wide of the 18th green. He bogeyed the last, and Price seized his chance. Par at the 18th, and victory by 1 shot. It was Price's name engraved on the trophy, and his second major win, after arguably the most dramatic golf ever seen on a British course.
And that's all the news tonight from all of us. Goodbye.